red X's. They have, no, I'm still using we for them, but they have a problem with vacant and abandoned housing. So they have a committee that was active, and it's actually making real progress, I think, in addressing that problem. You've probably seen some of the buildings that were eyesores for a long time have come down. The Tony Place, that large building next to CVS has come down recently. And I think once you really address it and you get some people working on it, you get things done.
I was just going to say that this is our first town administrator position. Bob Markle is our interim town administrator, so he's here part-time. And it took us a long time to get to the point where we have a town administrator. And before, I think that was part of the issue with the turnover and the inconsistency, was also the turnover and inconsistency within the board itself. And without having someone as a town administrator to run the town on a day-to-day basis, I think it led to a number of things falling through the cracks and not, spearheading and making sure things were getting done on time and properly. So I think that contributed to our financial issues right now. It's not just being downgraded by Moody's. We also have an override that's coming up on May 5th. And there's a Plan A and a Plan B. And Plan B would be a control board coming in if the override fails. So.
Well, I think it's important that you get a good first town administrator. In Ludlow, I happen to be, well, technically not the first town administrator, but in fact, I was. Previous to my starting, we had an executive secretary, Betty Sohop, was my predecessor there, and she was retiring. The position was created at the October town meeting. She retired in February, so effectively she didn't make a lot of changes in the way she did things. And when I came in, I really had to define that role. And I think you find you need someone who can define the role.
Do you have any other questions for us that you'd like to ask at this time?
No. Well, I think I asked the question I was most interested in.
Oh, great. Well, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you very much for coming out and meeting with us today. It was a pleasure meeting you, and you are our first interview, as you know. So as we move through the process, I'm sure that you will receive communication from Holly or Bob moving forward.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
The next item that we have on our agenda, if I miss anything.
Do we need to let him swap?
Oh, yeah. Can you run out and ask him to swap though? Thank you, Kate. Swap. The first item that we have on our agenda is an interview from MacDonald, who is here. And I will begin as I did during our previous interview by reading a statement of the duties, just so we all are aware of what we're looking for in this position. As the Chief Administrative Officer of the Town of Templeton, said employee will be responsible for the administrative, technical, and supervisory work in overseeing town activities and projects. Administrator will research, analyze, and recommend changes in town policies, systems, and procedures, and will serve as liaison and coordinate between town officials, employees, and residents. This employee is required to perform all similar or related duties as required by the Board of Selectmen. And there is your copy.
Thank you.
Sure. For those of you that were not here for the previous interview, what we will be doing is we have 10 questions that will, it's going to be the same 10 questions for all candidates, and they'll be asked by the same select men who asked at the previous interview. So if there are no questions, we'll begin with Selectman Morrison with our first question.
Hi, welcome. Yep. Our first question is, tell us about yourself and why you want this job.
My background is very crisis management. When I went to the town of Chester, they were $385,000 in the red. They didn't have an administrator for 5 months. When I started, they gave me a set of keys to the front door and to the office and said, there's the mail, there's the computer, and if you need anything, let us know. My next step was to work with Department of Revenue to make sure they didn't go into receivership. So it took us 6 months, 4 town meetings to make the cuts and the transition. It was a very excruciating period because people were irate when it came down to when the cuts were made. When you had to make cuts, we only have between the school and the town, we had a $3.2 million budget. So taking out $380,000 out of that budget was a major cut. The thing that I bring is I have an MBA in finance. I'm very good at finance. I have prior experience in business. I worked with my father in business, so I have that entrepreneur, how it is, how conservative money is tax-wise. I'm very good at being organized, getting things done. From the town of Chester, I received almost $11 million between grants and financial aid. Right now, we're in the final stage in the bond of $6.5 million for a new road for 7 miles. I just got $380,000 before I left in FEMA money. We lost that, the FEMA storm. We were able to grant out. We were 11 communities in the state to get the money, so we didn't lose any money from the storm. I've worked very well with people. I find working with elected and people who are not elected, they both have their territory. You have to find how to make it work. I get things done. I don't procrastinate. I bring a construction background. I realize that you have to move into a new town hall. You have to facilitate. I made some phone calls about the American Disabilities Act. Is there a possibility of getting an exemption under the state and federal statutes? So I've already checked with that. I've already checked with some of the reps about procedures for how to file if Plan A fails and you have to go to Plan B. So that's what I bring to the town.
Are you a certified procurement?
Yes, sir.
Yep. And so you've worked a number of construction projects or any?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a mine. Huh? It's a mine they give me? No.
How with the public face? I mean, do you have issues with being in the public light? The newspaper, quoted in the paper all the time. You having the reporters call, those kinds of things.
That's the job of the administrator, is to facilitate the policy of the town and the board to make sure the public knows what's going on. I don't shy away from the newspaper.
Okay. Good, excellent. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Selectwoman Farrell has our next question.
Okay. My question is a two-part question, and I believe this would refer to your time in the town of Chester. What are 3 positive things that your last boss would say about you?
Efficient, non-procrastinator, and get the job done.
And what would be one negative thing that your last boss would say about you?
Overworking hours.
As a follow-up, how many hours on average do you think you put into this job, put into a town administrator job?
When I started in Chester, they hired me for 20 hours a week and I was working 60 for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And after the 6 months, then it got down to 45. And then we had a Nolan crisis, the treasurer left, so I took over the treasurer's duties until we got a treasurer come in. Then the accountant left, I took over the accountant duties. So I was trying to keep everything afloat. So what was our part-time job turned out to be a full-time job.
You're a chief procurement officer. What is the largest public project that you've done?
Right now, we're going to, the water plant, we just rehabbed our water plant, was for 500-some thousand that we put into it.
How large is Chester?
1,450 people.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question is from Selectman Brooks.
Hi again, Mr. MacDonald.
Hi.
If you were interviewing someone for this position, what traits would you look for?
Getting things done on time, controlling the taxpayers' money, making sure you come under budget, and that you have a good rapport with the public.
Okay. Can you tell me one thing that you would do to maintain or initiate rapport with the public?
Yeah, I really believe that it's vital that you have an open door policy, that you listen to them, take care of their concerns. If it's a big enough concern that you can't handle it, make sure you bring it to the board, have the board address the issue. That's the foundation of what democracy is about, is open door, public policy. People come, they air out, like tonight, you have all these people here concerned about the community. So they want to know what's going on, and that's our job to make sure that we facilitate that. And transparency is out there, that they know we're working in the best interest of the town. We're here to save them money and do the most with the least amount of money.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is what did you like least about your last job?
The politics of the inner hometown boy, I guess, is a good way. You would set a policy, and then the push would come from the town, and they would push back, and then they would have to do it anyways, because the state would step in and say, he's right, you have to do it. So there was a lot of transition of, cut the police department, don't cut the school. Don't cut the school, cut the fire department. Don't cut the fire department, cut the highway department. Don't cut the highway department, cut the crossing. You know, there was always this transition. The biggest problem is you need the board to be 100% behind you when you go into a crisis, because it's so massive, there's so much going on, there's so many things that have to be addressed, and you have a $505,000 deficit that you're looking at, and if A doesn't work, B is going to be a nightmare. And I found from being in B, it's not fun. You have to make decisions that they're not going to be happy to people. People are going to be outraged. They're going to be at your meetings. I mean, our first time meeting, we had 148 people. After that, we had 10. So, you know, once you got through the cuts and to the transition, but that's the hardest part as an administrator and a member of the board, is when it comes time to do B, and you have to do B, be prepared, because you're going to have all the groups arguing over who should get what, and it's not fair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Selectman Morrison has our next question.
Please highlight those aspects of your background, education and experience, that you feel have prepared you for this position of town administrator in Templeton, and why are you the right person for the job?
Well, I bring a diversity. I was a person that was homeschooled, so I didn't go to college till I was later in life. I hold a record for the most miles commuted to college. I commuted every day from Adams to Boston to do my undergrad at Emerson. So I graduated 5th in my class out of 700 students, I think it was at the time. I worked in the state legislature. I learned how to write legislative law, understand the continuity of law, how it works, how the political process works. I worked for the Speaker of the House, so I was able to really understand economic development, healthcare, how municipalities operated, and how the inner workings of government. And I have a very good relationship with quite a few people in the legislative branch that I know personally and I've worked well with. The other thing that I bring to the board is I'm very good at grants. For my community, I've received two, when we did the water plant, we were in line from USDA to get $2 million. $500,000 of it was grant, 1.5 was going to be financed at a 2% interest. But town meeting voted it down and decided to do an internal rehab. We did an internal rehab. Like I said, I just received a FEMA grant, one of 11, and got $381,000 back from the town that we had lost previously. Then I have bond in for $6.5 million for 6.5 miles of road we have. So.
Good. What about union negotiations? Have you done much union negotiating?
When I was a selectman, I was on the board as the union representative for the Board of Selectmen, so I did police, fire, school.
You don't do that in your current position, no?
No, we don't have any unions.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next question is from Selectman Farrell.
There is increasing greater public expectation that municipalities should be held publicly accountable. How would you respond to public demands for greater accountability? And how would you deal with an angry member of the public who is upset with the municipality?
Well, that happens every day. What I find is you have to listen to what they say. You have to be able to listen to their concerns and then address the concern and say, look, this is my opinion, and it's only my opinion, but I think this is the way we should go. But if you're not satisfied with my decision or my opinion, you can always go to the board and have the board address it, because that's where the buck stops, is with the board. But I believe from my experience that as administrator in Chester, I always was able to get things done because I'd listen to what they had to say. I would explain to them. If they wanted documents, I would give them documents. There was nothing that I would not put up for them and say, here, look at. One of the biggest issues we had was the transfer station. We were losing $39,000 a year for the transfer station. So I came up with a solution with pay-as-you-go and just make this whole change in fee. So when we put it in, it was like war. I mean, people were really livid about it. So I pulled all the documents, all the paperwork, and laid it out and said, here you go. Show me where we can make this work for less, and I'd be more than happy. I went out and got a new bid. I changed everything we could do. And when we got done, they finally agreed that that's the only way I could do it. And then in the long run, they ended up saving $40,000 in the tax rate, because what they were now paying individually was paying instead of everybody paid for somebody else. So that's one of the things that I looked at and dealt with the public over. And the other one was the water department. We were cited, I don't know how many times, for failing to comply with the Clean Water Act. Prior to my coming there, they were getting cited every 6 months with decrees. And then we changed that. We went in, we rehabbed, we brought in engineers. We had people that would bring their babies in their laundry with the dirty water and put it on your desk and go, would you drink this? Would you wash in this? Would you put your baby in this? So we moved forward and spent all the money to rehab the facility. We listened to the public, we did what they needed us to do, we moved forward, and we took care of the problem. And now we're off the list of being cited.
How many water customers do you have?
Half the town, 750, half the town. And that was the other problem. The people who lived on the hill didn't want to pay for the water down on the bottom hill on the bond, so they would come down and vote against it because they lived up on the hill, so that was fun.
Thank you.
The Board of Selectmen is ultimately responsible to its taxpayers for the financial position of the municipality. Understanding financial information and making sound financial decisions can be difficult without financial training or background. However, it is the administrator's responsibility to ensure appropriate reporting is in place to facilitate sound decision-making. Tell us, as an administrator, what financial information you would report on to the Board of Selectmen, how frequently you would report, and how you would present the information in an understandable way so that the board has the relevant facts to make sound financial decisions.
What we did in Chester was every month we give the members the budget. Every month they would look at what was being spent, what was left in their account, and the first of the month that was on their desk. So they could go through and say, oh, highway spent $10,000 this month or $50,000 this month, and a running sheet. So if a taxpayer came in and said, hey, you spent money for oil, and how come? Well, we only spent this much, and this was the reason, and this changed, and oil went up, or gas went up, or So, but they always have the information right there that was printed out, which you can do, the account can print out a form each month, and everything will be right there. Once you get squared away, I realized that. We didn't have that. But we didn't have that at the beginning either. It took us 8 months before we were able to do that, but that was the goal that we put together, was that each board member every month would have the budget and look at it and know exactly what was left in that account to the penny.
How would you describe yourself and your management style? How would you produce a working environment that supports maximum productivity? Please relate your response to your working experience.
Well, I find most people who work for government are here because they want to be here, they're not here for the pay, and they're very productive, and they want to be part of the team. I find that laissez-faire works much better than being a pit bull. I find that going in, being sociable, working, trying to find out if there's a problem ahead of time to deal with, be sociable, and find resolutions to make things work. Nobody wants somebody riding herd on them. They want somebody to understand their problem, deal with the problem, and resolve the problem. And I find that it's worked very, very well for me. When I started in Chester, no one spoke to me for 6 months. I was the man from, well, he's gonna make the cuts, he's gonna do these things. And after 6 months, then they started, little things like leave a Hershey Kiss on your desk, or a cup of coffee, or a donut. But the first 6 months, no one talked to me. The only thing was an email or a phone conversation. They would wait till I left, and then they'd leave a voicemail and say, by the way, you didn't get this done, can I have this tomorrow? And then you go back and go, okay. But once we got through it, it changed a lot. And now my colleagues that I work with would say that we came a long ways from nothing, and when I left, they had $229,000 in the bank.
If faced with an employee or department head that needed some level of micromanaging, would you be willing to do that?
In a heartbeat.
Okay.
We have, I went through with my accountant, my treasurer, we went through the transition. My treasurer retired after 10 years. I got a new treasurer that wasn't the same municipality from the private sector. So it was 8 months that I worked with her to get her through, to get over, brought people in to show her how to do the process, how to make the changeover. I'm very hands-on, I'm very financially oriented. I like to know what's in the budget, I like to know what we're spending. And after going through the nightmare that I went through of the cuts and the transition, I vowed that it was vital that we need to stay on top of the budget and be able to produce whatever document the public wanted or the board wanted so they can address any issue that came before them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Selectwoman Farrell.
What has been the most difficult management situation that you've had to handle in the past few years, and how did you handle it?
Well, one of the big things we had was Worthington is a town in our school district. They petitioned legislation to be taken out of the district. And it looks like when this bill gets passed, that they'll be out of the district. Instead of 7 towns, we'll be down to 6 towns, which will put a major financial crisis on the other 6 towns when Worthington leaves the district. I found the other problems was during the transition of having no money and trying to function with new people and coming up to speed, the biggest issues were, like I said, the transfer station was a major transformation. The fire department was another big issue, the water department with the water. So I focused on, making sure if I had to stay late, that I stayed until things were taken care of and worked out to find a resolution. Because I find that if you're there, the help will be there, and it becomes a team effort to focus on where you're gonna go. And me personally, I think the biggest struggle was making those decisions to go to the board and say, look, you gotta cut this, you gotta cut this, you gotta cut this, you gotta cut this. And then the board would go, no, no, no. So then we go to town meeting, they voted down. And they go back, and then the state would say, this is the way to go. And then, those were the tough decisions. Because a lot of times people don't look at what you're looking at. You're looking at, say, a $5 million budget, and you're trying to make that $5 million budget work with quarters to make it cut and make it fair. And there's nothing that you can do to make it perfectly fair, because highway might have more money than the crossing guard. The treasurer might have more money than the accountant. I mean, there's very hard way when you sit and analyze how to adjust across the board to make it equal. You just try to make it the best you can for the best interest of the taxpayer and keep your tax rate under control.
And our final question is from Selectwoman Haley Brooks.
Well, it sounds like you already done this, but have you ever been in a leadership role where major change is taking place in the organization? How did you approach your part in it, and what are some of the key considerations in successfully introducing change?
I think the biggest thing was on the school, with them having the influence to be able to get out of the district. We were able to set up all the other towns together, and we all sat down, and we have been working together to find a resolution, how to make this work. The impact, they won't see the impact for 2 years. The first year, you don't get the true numbers. It's the second year you get the true numbers. And for a person who's been through the charter school system, when I was a selectman in Adams, we got the charter school. And we predicted that we would lose $3 million in 5 years. We lost $3 million in 5 years. So the town's putting money in every year to offset that. So what I try to do with the district here is say, look, we have to go to legislative branch and put funding in there to say, look, we need a 5-year pothole so that if there's a shortfall, the state's gonna cover this. And the other option we talked about too was that the district is serious to think about filing bankruptcy and go into receivership and force the government to look at it through the federal system and say, it's not fair, it's not equitable, you're taking this all away and you want us to pay for it. When you take a district, a town of Worthington, which is the biggest town in the district financially, and you take that out of it, you leave 6 towns that are, like Chester's tax rate is almost $22 a thousand. You can't put the burden on them and say, okay, now pick up $800,000 more a year. So those are the things that I look at, that we sat down, and we put it together, we came up with a plan, and we moved forward on the plan.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I guess there's one more question. Just, do you have any questions for us?
Are you prepared to plan B?
Yes.
You will, for the state, I mean, you're talking, you know, I listened to the tapes, and I listened to the elegant administrator speak about what the transition, I've been in that transition. The state just comes in and just says, boom, 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 there's no negotiation or, you know. And it's important for the administrator to know that the board's 100% behind when the plan's done. You can't say to the administrator, make the budget, make the numbers work, do what you have to do, and then come in and chastise the administrator saying, how dare you cut the school department? How dare you cut the police department? Or the fire department, or seniors, or, you know, there's no easy way in this transition. And it's good to know from the administrator's point of view that the board is willing to stand together. And we're not going to agree, but when we're done, we will agree. But you need to realize that I can only do my job if you support me. If you don't support me and I come in and I say, okay, we have to make $600,000 in cuts, and you go, we're not doing that, then you've lost where you gotta be. And I found that helped me when I went through it the first time, my board was 100% behind me. We would talk between us and work out numbers. But when we went to town meeting, all 3 sat down and said, we support it. And I think that's vital in order for you to go where you want to go. And you've had major turmoil here for quite a few years. It's not going to be something that's going to be fixed in a short period of time. And the other question I have for you is, what is your goal? What are you looking the town to be in 6 months? What is your perception of where this is going to be?
My goal would be, I know that, hope that it may take more than, well, actually approximately 6 months, because if we can get our Schedule A filed on time and have our, be where we need to be, to have our accounting in a position where when a department head or an individual comes forward and says, how much is in my account, that the figure that the town produces matches what the department head has, what it should be, so that we can make more informed decisions and really be on the path to financial solvency, whether that be through, the override that fixes our structural deficit, or through, it wouldn't be my choice, but a plan B in which we have to make those cuts, but to then have the problem resolved. And obviously, down the road, more things will pick up, will pop up, but hopefully nothing as horrific as the budget. Because even more, at least for me, even more than the $500,000 shortfall is the situation with the books, with and we had a presentation last meeting from our interim town accountant, who was also, was our forensic town accountant, because that's how bad, obviously, the books were, that we had to have a forensic